right, welcome to the front gardens in springtime when it's still chilly in the morning. This was our shrubbery that we had put in, and the common theme throughout is that we actually had quite a bit of deer browse here, but we've been able to mitigate it, I think, slightly with getting in the fence and putting some fences in here. But I'll just show you some of, we actually had a fence on this. This is an example of one of our kalmias. I'll show you which one. This one, they just kind of put their face in here and along the edges. And they, there goes a chipmunk. And they ate this. And I'll show you one that has not been eaten so you could actually see what happens with the plants. Our friends just came over and they gave us some alliums. This is our native ramps. So they're looking a little bedraggled, but I think these will take. We have some trilliums coming up as well. Look at all these trilliums. Geraniums. So again, this is a kind of early spring where not much is growing, but doesn't look the greatest, but there's a lot of interesting things that are happening.
Yeah, this just used to be lawn, and then 2 trees just plopped in the lawn.
Right. And this maple, I'm glad to see some buds on this. We had that polar vortex freeze at the end of May last year, and this barely had leaves. This barely had a second flush of leaves. And this was already a pretty compromised tree, but I am seeing some buds, but our Japanese maples got hit back really hard, and I think that we're gonna probably have to replace some. Our lazy leaf, which was like my favorite, it's not looking good. It's not looking good, and it's a very uncommon tree to actually find. So I want to go to that kalmia before I get caught up with other things. This is what a kalmia looks like that didn't get deer browsed. So you can see a lot of the new growth on it and has not had any buds eaten. So that gives you a really good idea of what it could look like. This is one of our native aronias as well that I had planted here. This is something that would often get eaten by deer. This fence might not even be tall enough, but you could see that it saved it enough from getting eaten. But let's take a closer look. I'll walk you through a little bit more of this is our pollinator garden. And again, if you've seen this later in the season, starting in like maybe July through November, I think that's when this garden is the most beautiful. But let's just take a look at all the things that are growing here. And you could see I've already cut back some of the stems. So I got out here early in like maybe February or early March, and I started cutting back the stems because we had hit some really warm days. And I was like, I think I'm just gonna cut these back. And I was glad that I did because I've been so busy otherwise to have come in here, but I could probably come in here and trim these down some more. But you could see that I started to cage some of the tulips because, oh yeah, sorry. Some of these tulips basically were eaten by the deer. Oh, this is a great example. This is what they do. So I don't know if these buds are even gonna come out.
But they will survive.
Yeah, they'll survive. There's a lot of stuff growing, but it's interesting because in May, this garden's super low. And then by the time September comes around, you're like, whoa, what happened? It's like fully grown. Here's some of our pulsatilla starting to grow. These have beautiful seed heads, really early bloomer. And then you see some of the primula. Some sedum coming in. And let me show you what else is going to be blooming. I had cut back this grass, so I cut the grass back in spring. And that's a really great biomass. This is Calamagrostis Carl Forrester. And then another early bloomer is our geums. So these are our geums kind of coming up. And I think this red flower right here is one of the tree peonies, if I'm not mistaken.
What's that?
This is actually going to be a parrot tulip. And you could see they kind of get this like fringy shape to them. So I'm looking forward to that. I think I can't remember the cultivar that I had planted. I'll have to like look back in my files. But I think it's gonna get like this kind of peachy green and white flower, which I thought was really neat. Here's our rose, like I said, geums. I think some yarrow is coming up here. And here's some of our thyme. You can see that the stems get pretty woody. So cutting this back is probably good.
What if you leave that here? Is that just gonna get overtaken by the new stuff?
It's gonna be overtaken by the new stuff. Ah. This area gets it's still pretty short, but in this area we planted pretty high. You can see some bulbs coming up. I think that's some type of allium coming up, if I'm not mistaken. And then I just wanna turn around and show you this. So our rhododendron, people have asked about this rhododendron. This is not something that we've planted. This was here. It was heavily, heavily deer browsed the year that we got here. The winter, we didn't know whether it would even come back. It was browsed so badly. This is rhododendron PJM, and you can see that it's just starting to bloom now. This is a great plant during May because that's when our hummingbirds come in and they just flock to this rhododendron. And then we turned this into a little garden bed with the corten steel edging. And so this is a lot of our lavenders. And I cut back lavender as well because if you don't, it gets really woody and starts to look really ugly. So they really respond well to cutting back. You can see this, we didn't do that great of a job like getting the grass out of here, but this one is a bit more rocky. And then we have our native strawberry coming in, which I don't mind. I mean, it's a little bit of a ground cover. You're not going to see much of the gravel probably in another year, but.
Yeah, you sit here quite a bit, right? You put a chair there.
Yeah, I'll put a chair right here. Just a really nice place to sit. This is Cornus cusa. So this, I'd say around late May, June is when this starts to flower. And I think looking off in this direction towards the gardens and into the distance is one of the best views in the house. Now, our bulb lawn is coming in, and we had, again, you never have a normal year. Last year was pretty impressive as a bulb show. This year, it felt like almost everything was blooming at once. We had some really warm days in February and March, and we got the aranthus and the crocus had come out. We were gone for the week that the crocus was out, mostly. But it's weird because the muscari now came out pretty early. And you can see the fritillaria is just starting to come out.
Which is what? The
this is
one?
the snakehead ones, yeah. There's some white ones also in here. And then this is the muscari, and they're just starting to bloom. And last year, the muscari, the fritillaria was almost gone, and the tulips were out with the muscari. And I think it's really hard to appreciate this bulb lawn when it's just purple and green. The purple looks very close to the green in my eyes. And you need that yellow to really pop out of the ground. And I don't know if we're gonna have too many tulips this year because I think the deer came in.
The deer may have taken them.
They browse them. I know I did.
This is what I really like, this edge
Yeah,
here.
this edge is so
It gets really
pretty.
dense. And I think at some point, and we've seen this in some gardens, right? Where there's just clusters of really dense like flowers.
Yes.
And then they really stand out, even though they're purple.
Yes. Now I have found some tulips. Let's see if I could see them again. Here's one. It's just starting here, but you see how the leaves have been eaten back?
Yeah. I think
So-
the deer must have gotten them when the...
But it's still, this one's still so early. So I think, because these usually come up, oh, there goes one of our mallards. So I think these usually come up in mid to early May. So there's more. You see this one? Hold on, I'm gonna be walking. Here's another.
Bink.
Here's another.
Bink. Yeah, they're in here. They're
They're
hard to
in
see.
here.
They're green. You can't find them easily.
Now, behind you is our native bluebells, and I don't remember planting this many because these are expensive, and I don't remember buying this many. So I think they've actually started to
Yeah, they must have multiplied.
multiplied on their own. I mean,
These are purple.
so this is our native bluebells.
These are more blue.
So some folks would plant like the English bluebells or the Spanish bluebells, and they're invasive south of here. So I did not want to plant those, and this is, if these start to press into this area, that I'd be totally fine with that. Now, we have to edge this bed properly, so that's one of the projects on our list of things to do, but we also planted them over here, and they're a little later emerging because I think they just don't get enough sun. So it's nice that we have them blooming at different times because it will just prolong the opportunity for bumblebees, because these are primarily pollinated by bumblebees. It'll give the bumblebees an opportunity to pollinate them over a longer period of time, which is really nice. So it's going to be it's sunny day today, so I would suspect that we're going to start seeing some bees, although it's still a little chilly, so they might have not like woken up yet. So I'm very happy to see those, and I'm happy to see that they're happy and they're definitely multiplying because I did not plant that many. Let's walk over to the shade garden because now is a great time since the Japanese maple is still bare. We worked with American Meadows, which had this mishap in their greenhouse where some of the trillium started to bloom because they kept the heat on or something happened. So they had to give away some of the trillium, and they sent some to us. And some of these I planted on my own, but I think some of these are also from American Meadows. So thank you, American Meadows. This is some of our native trillium coming up this year, which is really nice. And then that with the funky leaf back there is bloodroot. And I'll show you because I came out early when it was blooming. Got some really nice shots.
There's some stuff growing back there too.
Yeah, the heliobores and our dicentras coming up.
Can't really get back there, but
I got some shots of it. And then here, I mean, look at this. This is the geranium samobor. Excellent plant, excellent ground cover. I wanted to plant it around the edge because it just spreads really nicely. But we have like probably 60 or 70 different species of plants in here. Here's our lingonberry. We have some rue over there, some epimediums, a lot of our natives as well. So we have our native asarum, our native trilliums, some of our native sedges. This looked like crap like 2 weeks ago. I mean, it looked like nothing. So just to see all these blooms coming up right now in the shade garden, I mean, it looks like doesn't look like a shade garden, but with this eastern light coming in, but it's just enough light for this to start looking good and late enough in the season. But like I said, 2 weeks ago, it looked like garbage. All right, so here is our herb garden. And all of these gardens actually got pretty damaged because if you recall, we put this whole stone path in. We had the boys come in and they did the stone path, and this is hard work, and they're throwing stone dust everywhere. I was out every day watering off the garden because it was so much stone dust on the leaves. And this garden here in particular got like really trashed. This is our Prunus pumila variation depressa. So this is our prostrate cherries. Some of these are actually even growing under the stone.
Well, the stone probably dropped on top of them.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I mean, it's really hard because like these stones are
hard.
so heavy, you can barely lift them on your
Yeah.
own or with two people, and then you have to put them in place and cut them, and it's just you're just not gonna pay attention to a little tree that's next to it.
You can't. You're gonna snap your fingers off. So, so these will grow again though. You could see they got unceremoniously decapitated as well. But I'm looking forward to this kind of snaking around and growing into the path a bit, because that's what it was doing prior to the fact that we got these stone paths in. And this becomes a nice little garden. And this Prunus pumila was looking so good. They had the little drupes, little berries, and the flowers are really cute. And it's kind of more prostrate habit happening here with the prostrate thyme. And then we have Aronia low grow. I think this is the Aronia, so it doesn't grow that high. And then we have some more tall flowers in the back. Here's what's happening. This is our native viburnum. I think this has gotten one of the fungal diseases that hits our native viburnums. If somebody knows a bit better than I, it almost looks like a little gall-like as if there was a gall that attacked this. But there's a lot of diseases that attack our native viburnums, and this is one of our native viburnums. I'm hoping it kind of pulls through the season, but we'll just have to keep an eye on it. Something to look out for when you're planting your native viburnums.
What are you gonna say about the herb garden?
Oh yeah, so the herb garden. So we've planted a bunch of quince in here, so you can see the quince coming up. We actually planted 3. So there's one right here, it's starting to bud, and there's one with the yellow tag right there. Because I wanted more shrubs in here, so it's not just herbs and then a shrubbery, but like transitioning slowly over the shrubbery. Here's the pycnanthemum. Here's our mountain mint. You could see how much it's spreading. And some people will not plant mint in a garden because of the way that it spreads. But I'm kind of excited for it to spread. So and I think this is a type of plant that I would plant on the bank by the meadow house, so I could even come in here and shovel off a bunch of this and then start putting it into the meadow if it gets to be too much. Here's some of our Monarda that's growing up right here, really early on, you can see. And then we have some of our other pycnanthemum. This is another species of pycnanthemum. I think this is verticillata. So you can see that it has thinner leaves. And then we have our native Camassia here, which is our native, it's kind of like our native hyacinth. So you can eat the bulbs. This is valerian. So anybody who has trouble sleeping, this is a popular plant for that. And then I will jump over this pycnanthemum over here and I'll show you, this is also valerian. This is our agrimony. So this is Agrimonia striata. It gets kind of like a little candle-like yellow flower that's popular with the bees. Some of our yarrow. And then we have something coming up there that might also be a little Monarda, but I'm not sure. And then Tanacetum. This is our feverfew. So I came back here and I actually cut this back. And then this looks also like an agrimony that's snuck in here. This is our chamomile. So that's growing all throughout here. This could get pretty lanky and then fall into the pathway, so I have to cut it back pretty frequently. Here's our thyme, and then here is our funiculum, which is you love this plant.
Yeah, they're really tall.
Fennel. Yeah, bronze fennel.
Smells so good, you walk right past it.
So people will use the seeds as a digestive, for instance. You could use the leaves for flavoring, and it's also a host plant for our black swallowtail, which is, actually there was a black swallowtail here on it last year. This, I don't even think I planted it here, but it somehow seeded itself. It smells like catnip to me. And then, oh yeah, you can smell it.
What's all this growing through here? Is that the thyme?
This is thyme. This, I have no idea. It looks like something seeded in here.
It's coming up everywhere. See
It
that
is.
in between the stones?
You know what this is? Fennel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we have
boy.
we have, look how much.
Oh, wow, it's everywhere.
We have so much fennel.
Well, what do you do?
We're gonna have
this
to.
This is just gonna trample over.
We're gonna have to pull it out. I mean, it's so prolific. I have one in our orchard. This is the thing. When you have an herb garden, a lot of this stuff is spreaders, like this pycnanthemum, this fennel. My mom was like, "You're so blessed with all this fennel." I'm like, "Mom, come up so I could just like take out a bunch for you." This is what it is. They're so giving. This is Scutellaria. This is our skullcap. So we have that kind of growing in here as well. So there's a lot in here. We'll grow our basil. Our basil's not hardy here, but I'll often grow basil and lemon verbena and a bunch of others that aren't hardy as well. I'll come out here and plant it because it's just great to, if I'm cooking up here, to just run out and grab some stuff. You can see that there's some erosion here, like the mulch. We had mulch here, but when the guys came in for this, it just kind of ruined the garden. So I have to come back in here and start to just mulch it, maybe add some soil.
What's this squiggly tree?
Oh yeah, so this is one that was also getting eaten by deer. And I came in here and quickly put this on because this is our contorted red filbert hazel. And it gets red leaves and it's one of like, it's not our native hazel, but it just looks so funky. So I have this kind of growing as a centerpiece. And so much happening in the pollinator garden. And like I said, the shrub garden, you can see some of our hyacinths have come up early. And ooh, look at this. This looks like one of our, this is our hepatica, I think. Oh, and look at this, it's in full bloom, this trillium. Oh, and they're coming up all throughout here. And these are geraniums. This is Aquilegia, I think. This looks like some kind of brassica that has moved in. That needs to go. Geranium.
Mushrooms.
Fake mushrooms.
Oh.
And this one is another prunus. And this stuff I did not plant. This is our, I believe, this is our mountain mint that has come in here. So this garden, this shrubbery, kind of went in a little bit last minute. It's looking great. Some of the stuff got eaten. I saw that ilex got eaten by the deer, unfortunately. But there's a lot of things that have seeded in here that I'm just gonna be okay with. Like this is a great example of something that seeded in here last year that I noticed. So this is another Augustaki funiculum, I think. And I was just like, hey, you know what? Come on in. Some of our milkweed that has moved in from the pollinator garden has moved into here. And so there's going to be chipmunks planted here. So there's going to be some compromise. It's not all going to be what I have intended to plant, but you have to then make decision, well, what do you want to see and what don't you want to see? And I'm probably just going to come in here and take out the dandelions. One other thing I should mention is something I didn't plant, but is just wants to be here. And that is this buttercup. Look at all the buttercups. It's almost like a ground cover here.
It's kind of nice.
It's really nice. It actually grows a lot through here. You might recall when we mow this area, we mow them down really low, and then we have like low buttercups. They just want to be here because it's like really moist. And so I figured we might as well just keep them here. And we'll have some little yellow flowers and everything will be happy, hunky-dory. This is one of our, this is an intergeneric cross. Sorbus and Crataegus. This, unfortunately, I don't know what happened here, but this one got broken. And I planted this to go in with some of the trees, the taller trees. So it's not gonna get too tall, but I wanted to kind of match. And then this is one of our Cercis canadensis golden falls. So you can see the buds are just starting to come in. And like I said, in 2 weeks, I think this is gonna grow. But otherwise, the last thing I'll point out is that we planted some landscape plugs and deep plugs We planted some of this thyme to grow in between the cracks, but you see they kind of push up and this settles, so I might have to actually put more crusher run. And then here you'll notice that some of the deep plugs are coming up. I think this might have been our foam flower, some mitella coming up through here. Some of these holes are from the chipmunk digging. But what I want to do is once things settle, I want to put some more mulch or some compost on top of some of this area, just so that like the plugs aren't sticking out or the roots aren't sticking out. But this is going to look like something else. Come back in like a couple months and I think this will be full on, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to look like in like 2 to 3 years when it actually fully matures, because this is only what, like a year and a half old. It's pretty early. But that's our tour of the front gardens. We'll be sharing how the gardens and wildscaped areas mature as the seasons progress, so if you enjoy videos like this, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications button to help us grow and share these videos to more folks. In the meantime, we'll be cracking away at more of the gardens and renovations here at Flock. We'll see you in the next video.